Good evening, everybody. As introduced, my name is Payton Silket. I am also the reason why people have to stand on a little peg, because the teleprompter, needs to be adjusted for a 6'5" person. I didn't get the memo, but I realized that you win a bet at the end if you can mention teleprompter the most times during your speech. So I'm vying for it. But in all honesty, I do want to give my respect, my gratitude, and appreciation to the sound and to the technical crew. They have a very difficult job. So can we give them a round of applause, please? They are doing amazing. And I just want to say how grateful I am to be here with you all on this evening. I don't know, for you all, this is my first time being out in a while. And it feel good. It feel real good. It should be your first time out too if you've been being good. But that's okay. We don't judge here. We don't judge. We mediate. We don't judge. So, as we are gathered here this evening reflecting upon justice and education, I believe that there is no greater champion for both than Mr. Frederick Douglass. Oh yeah, go ahead. Clap for Frederick. I love that man. While he was enslaved, he taught himself to read. As a child, in the face of unrelenting persecution, he vigorously pursued education because he understood that while his body was enslaved, his mind was emancipated, and his body would have no choice but to follow suit. Upon freeing his mind, he understood that what he had now seen, he could no longer unsee. More to it is who he had now seen himself to be, he could no longer unsee. His own humanity, his own dreams, his own desire for freedom. And after a previous attempt at escape, he finally achieved the physical freedom that his mind had already inhabited, and became one of the most powerful figures in the abolition movement, advocating for an end to the brutality that was slavery, and calling into question the conscience of an America that would allow for such an abhorrent practice to continue. After the abolition of slavery, as the United States government was deciding how to educate the newly emancipated African Americans, it was in this context that Douglass was pondering his own education. And he noted that it is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken adults. Amen. They told me to use my preacher's voice, so these amens, I'm gonna need it. Amen. What many people do not know is that this quote is him examining the true purpose of an education. That education is not simply for reading and writing and arithmetic, or for us lawyers, torts and other things, but instead its purpose is for laying the foundation within a child that will help them remain whole as they traverse this incredibly and sometimes unexplainably broken world. One of the most valuable tools that we could give our children in this very endeavor is the capacity to see and to understand the conflict happening around them in a new and unique light. One that illuminates and perhaps makes sense of the otherwise incomprehensible violence, othering, and polarization that exists in their current situations, in their schools, or in their own homes. When I first began studying conflict and dispute resolution, I had no intention of doing what I am now doing. I was called and driven to lead the bridging and belonging work that is happening right now in the East Bay, bringing together people from diverse backgrounds and races, ethnicities, and socioeconomic statuses into relationship, into conversations that lead to reconciliation. Amen. Go ahead, say some amens. And while doing this work, I did not realize how deeply this was going to seep into my own heart, and how near and dear this would affect me personally. Like Douglas, I had learned that what I had now seen about conflict, I could no longer unsee. Once I saw how conflict could be used as a tool to build and unite rather than divide, I was changed. Once I saw how conflict was always rooted in something deeper and more far-reaching than whatever the superficial issue presented as the main issue, I was changed. Once I saw how conflict itself could become a catalyst, a profound healing in the community and within the soul, I was changed. And I could choose whether or not to embrace this change that was happening within me, but my ignorance to its power and to its potential could no longer be feigned. And this is the gift that the Western Justice Center is giving to their students. The possibility to see themselves and others around them with new eyes and put together the broken pieces of a world that they themselves must inherit. And the responsibility is on us to give this gift to them. Because the reality is that we are the ones that have failed them. Go ahead, amen. We may be pondering, Payton, how have we failed them? I realize that the very problems that they will be facing, our students, are the ones that we are in this moment creating, are the ones that we are in this moment avoiding or perpetuating, are the ones that we have refused to acknowledge ourselves. The issues that they must overcome will be the very issues today that we have refused to resolve in our own context. And as I have reflected on just how deep this failure goes, I was reminded of the young children who were killed in Afghanistan by an American drone strike just a few weeks ago. And it struck me that all of them were under the age of 20, meaning they were not even born on the day when the planes crashed into the towers on 9/11. This last year was frightening, with all of the polarizing rhetoric that came up, that even manifested in our own houses and Thanksgiving tables that we were thankfully probably not sitting at. We had COVID as an excuse to not go. But I realized I was heartened by the images of all of the masses of youth who had taken to the streets and were marching in an attempt to mend the rift between police and community, a rift that began before many of them could even walk or were even born. Our young people have already begun to take up the mantle. But it is up to us in this space to give them every opportunity to succeed where we have failed. The tools that these students learn and develop open up the possibilities of how they can choose to affect change within their own context of this broken world. The tools that these students learn and develop provide them the opportunity to envision a universe that was not previously a possibility. Something unimaginable is now obtainable when the person that you were taught to view as an adversary can now be seen as a human being. And you learn how to negotiate express yourself, and most importantly, listen. Listen deeply enough to understand the other person's perspective, knowing that at the end, you don't have to agree with them. But now you can see a future that is collaborative. You have been changed. This is the gift that many of us were not given when we were coming of age, as we traverse the trials of this broken world. And if we are being honest with ourselves at this moment, this is a big reason why we each have experienced brokenness in our own lives. Douglas reminds us that it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults. But today, at this moment, the question we must ponder as the broken men and women of this world is, can we still build strong children? WJC answers yes. The Western Justice Center answers yes by giving our students, our beloved young ones, the tools that they will need to see, to understand, and to heal the brokenness in their lives. And we today must commit ourselves with that same resolve to the belief that investment in our future begins with empowering our young adults in the present. And perhaps, while in the process of building up our strong children, we may find that we are repairing ourselves. Amen.